Good afternoon, people. Titus here for part 5 of the Qbert mini-series, and in this video, we'll be creating the score system for this project. We can make use of our game timer that we made in the previous video to adjust points given to the player for flipping tiles in a quicker fashion. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so the first part of this code is going to involve adding some adjustments in the widget. So we'll open up our widget that we created in the last video. And then we're going to come to the graph editor. We did some work in pre-construction and we created some custom events for the cubes and the time. So basically now we're just going to make another custom event. And this one's going to be update the score. And then we just need a single pin. So we're going to come to the input section, hit the plus sign, and then we can just call this score and change that to an integer. Now in the actual designer graph, the score has one variable, and the variable is called score. So when we go back to the graph on the left hand side, you'll see the score variable here. We can drag that into the actual graph editor, do a get, and then off that pin, you can do set text. From there, you just hook up the execution pins, and then you can drag the score into the text. And then it'll add this toText function, and you can leave the defaults alone, and that should be good for the widget portion of this. Now the next part, we actually need to adjust the code in the game mode. So we can come to our blueprints folder, and we have our BP game mode that we can open up. And we're going to need a few things in here. So we got the begin play, we created some custom code to count the cubes, decrease the cubes, and then we started our timer. We're going to create another custom event. We'll call this score increase. And then I think we're going to need two integers, or I'm sorry, two variables. So we'll hit the plus sign. We'll have one that's just called score, and we'll set that to the integer. And we're going to have another one called points. And you can probably do this a few different ways. So I'll show you the way I'm going to do it, and then you can make adjustments to your own projects, of course. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a reference to score. So I'm going to hold Control, drag that out. And then I'm going to get a reference to points. So I'm going to Control and drag that out. I'm going to go into an add operation. And then I'm going to go into a set score. So I'm going to hold Alt, drag out. And I can hook this pin up here. Drag that in here. And then I'm going to pull this back a bit. So when this function is called, it's basically just going to take the current score. It's going to add whatever points the tiles are worth, and it's going to set that to the new score. Now we just need a way to pass this integer into the widget so it updates the widget. We have a reference to our HUD, so we can drag this, do a get, and then from here we have a function that we just created called update the score. So we can just pull this here, drag this up over here, and then just pull the pin in for the score reference. And that'll pass that value along to the widget without any issues. Now, we haven't actually created a way to actually set the point system. So starting off, I think the max point value I'm going to set is 500. And then you can, of course, adjust this however you want. And I'm going to create a new function, and I'm just going to call it the point system. And then the way I am going to do it is I'm going to hold B and grab a couple branch nodes. I'm going to start off, go into a branch, and then on a false pin, I'll go into another branch. And then I'm basically going to get the reference to minutes, and I'm going to get a reference to seconds. So I'm going to hold Control and drag those out. I want to say if the minutes are equal to 0, And the seconds are, we'll do less equal to 5. And then I'm going to come into an AND Boolean. Drag these in here. And then I'll plug this condition into here. If this evaluates to true, then what we can do is make sure the points are set to 500. If it evaluates to false, then I want to come over here, Control D to duplicate this. I want it to check if these seconds are less than 20. And then if that evaluates to true, I want to hold Alt and drag the points. And I'm going to set the points to only 250. And then if it's greater than 20 seconds, meaning that the timer's already elapsed, then I'm just going to set the points to maybe 50. Like so. So that way my point values will have 3 different values. They'll start off at 500. As long as the timer's less than 5 seconds, Qbert will get 500 points for each tile flipped. After 5 seconds, he's only going to get 250. And then after 20 seconds, he's only going to get 50 points for each tile. And then you can kind of make this as advanced or as complicated as you want. But just for this demonstration, I'm going to make it pretty simple. Now that we have the point system created, we have to call it. So you could, of course, call it in tick, so it runs every frame. But we already have a stopwatch function that runs every 1 second. So I'm actually just going to go into stopwatch. And at the end of the code, I'm just going to run a call to the point system. Because it's the same function, or it lives in the same game mode, so they can reference each other without any issues. So every time the stopwatch gets called, it's also going to update the point system. So the game mode will evaluate how many points a block is worth, depending on how much time has already passed. And that completes the code for that. Now there's still an issue with this, and you'll notice it's not going to work. You can see the score is not updating. And that is, of course, because we've created the code to increase the score, but we've never actually called this event from anywhere. So you can do it from a few places. You can do it from Qbert, or you can do it from the cube. I think for this example, it makes more sense to do it from the cube. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to drag out the game mode reference. And then I'm going to search for score increase. And call that on the begin overlap. So this cube has the this little trigger box on there. So when that trigger overlaps, it's going to make a check to Qbert. And if it detects that it is Qbert that flipped it, it's going to check to see if it's already been flipped. If this is the first time it's flipped, then it's going to change the material, it's going to decrease the cube count, and then it's going to increase our score. From the score increase, it's basically going to take whatever point system, which is running every 1 second, and then add that to the current score, which is 0. And then it's going to pass that to the update score function in the widget. And all that does is it takes that value and passes it to this text block. And that's basically it. So if I did this all right, we should be able to hit play. You see we got 500 points on that first cube, 1500. After 5 seconds, it should only give me 250 points, which you can see there. It looks like it is. And then after 20 seconds, my points should go down to 50, I think it was, only 50 points. And there you can see that's working just fine there. So now we have a cube counter, we have a game timer, and we now have a score system. So yeah, all right everyone, this completes the score system part of this series. I hope you found some informative value in this topic that you can take into your own projects. In the next video, we'll work on the death code and our life counter system. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.